Las cosas que necesito en la vida ya están aquí. Las cosas que necesito en la vida ya están aquí. I am free, free as a bird now, with my feathered wings. I am free, free as a bird now, with my feathered wings.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Camino Cafe. I am Lee Brennan and I'm so happy that you are joining us today, whether you are joining us on our YouTube channel or on our new podcast. We're so happy to have you here. And you just got to hear our new intro song, and that is Compliments of Jackson Maloney. And Jackson and I met a few months ago, and he is a pilgrim that walked the Camino back in 2015. And he wrote that beautiful song, Finisterra, and he's been so kind to allow us to use that as our intro song. So anyway, I'll have links to Jackson's music in our show notes, and he will actually be on our podcast in just a few weeks. So you'll get to meet him very shortly. So today I am joined by Brian Skillen, and I am super excited for you to meet him. I think you're gonna love his energy, and he is a pilgrim, a dance professional, a dance instructor, and also now an award-winning author. And he's got so much to talk about, so we're going to get right to it. But let's start off, Brian. Can you just let everybody know where you are in the world right now?
Hey, everybody. So I'm in Petersburg, Virginia, just south of Richmond. We just moved here recently.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Colorado. Grew up in New Zealand for a little while when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I travel around a lot. Most of my adult life was spent in New York.
Okay, awesome. I, before the interview, I was kind of looking at all your stuff that you have online and found a video of you dancing, and oh my goodness, so impressive. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that, but we won't talk a lot about that today. But I did see that you just started offering classes online. And so I didn't know if you want to mention that too.
Yeah, sure. So pretty soon we'll be launching our online dance class. You can find some now if you go to my website, luckyskillen.com. My nickname is Lucky in the dance world. And dance was super cool. Like I started when I was 15, started teaching by 18, nationally by 20, internationally by 22. I've taught in over 35 countries around the world, and usually tour for about 6 to 9 months out of the year. Every week is a different country or different city, teaching dance or performing. Wow. Did the show thing in New York and a whole set. But I focus on partner dancing, and I look at dance like it's a language. And so I teach people pretty much how to talk to each other through dancing. It's fun.
I could definitely see that in the video. It was amazing. So yeah, I hope people will check that out. Well, let's talk a little bit first. So we have so much to talk about, but I thought we're going to back up and talk about your pilgrimages. You've gone on several. And so let's just start with, the big question everyone always asks. How did you find out about the Camino? What planted the seed for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe my first one was in 2008. I was on a tour and I was in Europe. And I was in Spain and I had an extra week, and I looked for things to do in Spain. And all of a sudden the Camino de Santiago came up, and there weren't any good websites back then about it or anything really. And I looked for, okay, what can I do within I think it was 2 weeks, week and a half. And I looked, and where I went, I ended up going to Lugo. So I did the Primitivo route, and it wasn't very, very well marked at that time. I mean, and there was nobody. I remember spending one night in a 50-person dorm and nobody was there. I had no idea what to do when I got there. I didn't speak any Spanish. I was just I showed up, I'm like, I'm ready. And then I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I am. What country am I in? Oh my goodness. And so luckily I was able to go to the church, and they told me about the tourist office. I got the credential, then they let me stay there. And then pretty much that was my loneliest Camino. One day, my best conversation I had was with a horse, and that was pretty interesting, right? And because it wasn't very well marked, I actually got lost. And as I was going, it started to get rainy and started to get dark, and I was pushing myself, and I ended up hurting my knees. And so every day after that, I walked and I pushed myself more and more and more. And finally, I got one day outside of Santiago and I couldn't walk anymore, which for a normal person, that's one thing. But for a dancer on tour, luckily it was the end of my tour, so I didn't have any more after that. But my legs were jacked and I couldn't walk. I had to use 2 sticks and I had to take a bus the very last day. But it kind of had a silver lining, because when we got in there, I sat down and like it was pretty much me and maybe like 2 other people, and then this older lady comes in, and I think she had MS, and she had taken her pilgrimage down in a van, essentially because she couldn't walk, but it was her way of doing pilgrimage after her father had died. And like there we were, like she was, she could barely move, I could barely move, and I just held her as she cried. I mean, it was just like one of those beautiful Camino moments where God just provides, like where you get outside of yourself and you're like, oh wait, my knees are injured, so I can be here for this beautiful person that's going through this thing. And there would have been nobody in that church to hold that woman like at that moment. And it was just such an incredibly special thing to share with her. And we said our goodbyes, but I mean, I'm gonna remember that. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I'm gonna remember that moment forever. And anyway, yeah, so that was my first one. And then I vowed I would come back again because I wasn't able to walk into Santiago. So I was like, I've got to come back and finish.
Wow, Brian, chill bumps everywhere and tears in my eyes. What a beautiful story. I mean, there you are, here you're this dancer, this professional dancer. You hurt your knees, which had to be incredibly stressful for you, like thinking about like, oh my God, what have I done? Mm-hmm. And instead you turn into this angel for this person who probably really needed you in that moment. I mean, that's the Camino.
That's the Camino. It just takes you outside of yourself and you realize, it's about what you can give, and that's what it comes down to. Wow,
that is a beautiful story. So after that, you decide, okay, I gotta finish this. I want to walk into Santiago. So right. What was it like that first time when you literally walked through, the tunnel and you walked out into the square?
Well, I mean, the first time in 2008, when I couldn't really walk, oh man, it was humiliating. Like it was humbling and humiliating, and one of the best things I've ever experienced. Because it's just, I don't know. You feel so real and you feel so alive when there's nothing, like there's no pretenses, there's nothing, and it's just you and your body and God and whatever's carried you all those miles to be there, and it was just like, it opens up and it's just like a well of emotion that bubbles up inside of you. I don't know, and comes out through your eyes usually.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Okay, so let's skip forward a little bit. So you go a couple of years later and something happens that inspires you to write this award-winning book, which is titled The Way Through a Field of Stars, a historical fantasy set on the Camino de Santiago. Yes, brilliant.
That's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's a beautiful cover.
Thank you. I'll talk a little more about that later. But yeah, so fast forward to, I think it was 2017. I'd just gone through a really bad breakup. I was going to marry this girl. I was like one of those, we were almost to the point of proposing and then it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, great, now what? And so there's a whole funny other story with everything else. I won't get too much into that. I'll focus more with the Camino. I decided it was time to go back and finish my Camino. And so with this one, I started in Burgos. Okay. And, it was a beautiful place. I was ready. I'd done this before. I'm ready to go. I love this. And I get walking and we get to the Arc of San Antone. And I know all of you out there, like for me, that's one of the most special places on the Camino. I saw the Arc of San Antone. I thought, my God, what is this? And then I thought somebody's got to write a story about this. And, as I'm going under, I'm seeing all these things. And like, I love symbology. And I saw some Templar symbols. I was like, wow, okay, interesting. And then, like I saw Castle Jerez in the background and with the castle up there. And I was just like, where am I? This is like the coolest thing ever. And so then that night I go into town and I go into the, the municipal albergue, And I noticed that the stamp of the city is the Cross of Jerusalem, which kind of has one Templar cross in the middle and then 4 surrounding it. At least it was at the time. I'm sure it probably still is. And I was like, oh, interesting Templar stuff here. And the guy's like, what do you know about the Templars? And we started getting into this conversation. And he told me all about the history of Templars in Castelldefels and on the Camino. He said there used to be 5 orders of the Templars there. He said there was the Antonian monks at the Arc of San Antonio, but he also said there was Templars there. And he even talked about the monks being buried underneath. He said there was a graveyard underneath, like a crypt down there that has like 500 knights in it or something like that. He also told me, I might be over exaggerating on the number of knights, I don't know. He also told me the whole hill underneath the city was hollowed out with tunnels, which is pretty cool. And if you look at other Templar stuff, a lot of cities, the Templars did a lot of their stuff underground in the tunnels. So essentially, like, the Arc of San Antonio was my inspiration, and then or it was my hook, and then this was like my inspiration. So the next morning I walk up, my backpack's too heavy. I got my dancers in there, and I take them. There's a little secondhand store there, and I leave them there, and I said, I'll trade these in for a story. And I didn't know what I was getting into. Yeah. And so every day after that, the movie played like a movie in my head. The people I met became characters in the book, and the things I saw. And the guy's like, look out for the Templar code on the Camino. I don't know if there is one or not, but I saw Templar stuff everywhere, and I was just like, and sacred geometry and like all sorts of things. It was incredible, and I was like, wow, there's something to this. But I mean, I'd need like 10 years to excavate, but or to explore. And so here I am kind of on my own. I'm walking my Camino, but at the same time too, there's this alternate world happening where people are becoming medieval characters. My book takes place in the year 1306, which is 1 year before the Templars were rounded up and executed. And so everybody's medieval. There's this one great Scottish brother and sister in there. And I call them Andy Sinclair and Claire Sinclair in the book. But they were based off of brother and sister. And as we're going, I found out that he was actually dying of cancer, and that's why he was walking the Camino. And his whole life, he wanted to be a Templar. So in my book, I made him a Templar in honor of this guy. I don't even know their names either. I can't, I didn't bother because you're so in the moment there, and they only walked with me for 2 days, but they really impacted me. And then, I had Gerhard and Mariano that walked with me. And in the book, they turned into Gerhard the Destroyer, who's this big Bavarian man, and Mariano the Mercenary, who uses his knives and things. But, and it's kind of funny, I always say God has a sense of humor. He made me fat. I was 220 pounds when I was a kid. I was way obese. And then I started dancing, and it saved my life. And then I also struggled with dyslexia, and I had 3rd grade reading and spelling level in high school. So I say God has a sense of humor. He made me fat, and I became a dancer. He made me dyslexic, and I became a writer. And so for me, the way I wrote this book was actually dictated. Everything on my phone every morning. I'd get up before the sun was up, walk by myself under the stars and the moon, and just dictate what was playing in my head. And everything came together in pieces. I mean, it's just incredible, the effect that this book has had on my life and on the people that have read it. My goal is to inspire 1 million people to walk the Camino with this book. And it's already inspired like 10 people to do the virtual Camino. Like, they've written back to me and they're like, thank you so much. Your book inspired me to do this.
Well, wow. Okay. So many follow-up questions.
Yeah. Sorry. I just kept talking. And I have a lot more beyond that.
No, I love everything that you're sharing. But I want to dig a little deeper because I think
let's do it.
Everybody's going to be very interested. So, first off, I was reading some of your reviews and I was very touched. Literally, people were saying, I'm going to walk now after reading your book. And I just wondered, how did that feel as an author when you read that?
Oh, there's no greater feeling, because when you set out to do your purpose, when you're living your life on purpose, there's nothing like the feeling when you see that. And once again, it's about contributions to others. It's not about me. It's about what I can inspire in somebody else to go do. And to inspire that one person to go, even though the Caminos closed down, just to on their app doing their thing. She wrote, one of the people wrote back to me, she's like, this changed my life. It helped me go through and think about things, the way the Camino does. when you're on it. Like, you can think and you can go through and you meet people to go. For her, she wrote back and she's like, it just gave me the space I needed to get through what I was going through, and to think what might have happened had you not had that space and that quiet. And there's no greater gift than giving to other people, like, hands down, life of contribution. That's where it's at. And as an author, like, the reward of that review of somebody saying, yeah, this inspired me to do that, it's priceless.
Yeah, Brian, once I started these interviews and I started talking to, all different pilgrims from, they're all doing different types of jobs or whatever. They had different reasons for going on a Camino. But the common thread that is that I'm hearing is that when we come back after being pilgrims, we're moved to give back, and we start kind of paying it forward. And I'm seeing that over and over again, especially with authors, that you really are doing more than just writing a book. I think you're inspiring people to go on the Camino. And like you're saying, who knows what would have happened in that scenario had that book not been in the world. Yeah. So there's no doubt in my mind that, that seed was planted so that you would write that book and, touch somebody's heart, and who knows what else is going to come of this, So
yeah,
I want to. So let's talk about, you said that, wow, God had a sense of humor.
Yeah.
That you were overweight as a child and became a dancer. Mm-hmm. And then you struggled with dyslexia, and then you became a writer. So I know that we have a lot of listeners that are always very curious. And, I think when we walk the Camino, we probably all have a book inside of us, that we think about. And so I think people are very fascinated by the writing process. And so I'm really curious because, I think that I would be better verbally writing than I would just sit down and write. So tell us a little bit more about how you dictated. You said you're in Denver, you're in Colorado at this point when you're walking under the stars and you're dictating?
On the
Camino.
Every day, every morning. Like it was like I was still dreaming. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like a movie in my head, and I just talked out what I saw. Like, it was incredible. And everybody I met became characters, the things I saw. Like, even to one point when we were in Leon, right? We were there on Good Friday, and there's this one chapel that I've been there 2 other times, and I haven't seen it open, but it's open on Good Friday. And I saw one of the things that I needed for the book, and I was just like, holy cow, this is, and then I went back later and it was closed. I didn't take a picture. And so but it was there, like, on that day. Had I not been there on the day, I wouldn't have been there. So while I was on the Camino, I was walking under the stars, and I would just talk out what I was seeing and laugh and just kind of like let it flow through me and whatever. And then later, funny enough, I never even listened to it again, because it cemented in my brain what was happening. And that's just the way that my mind works. But the biggest thing for me with the writing process, writing this book has been a re-education for me to learn English. Because like I said, I had a 3rd grade reading, spelling, and level in high school because they didn't diagnose me as dyslexic because that wasn't a thing back then. And so I just kind of missed it. So I had to teach myself like where commas go, where periods go, all this. So it was like a long, I had a vague idea. I know where periods go, but commas, forget about it. Yeah. And people argue about where commas, semicolons, em dashes, like everything. Now I'm much better. I bought a big book, like this big, the Chicago Style Manual. Writers, buy the Chicago Style Manual. Everybody's going to have a different point of view on punctuation. The Chicago Style Manual is the manual that is most recommended for publishing. So at least in America, I can only speak to here. So if you're like me and very frustrated about, there's this article that says to punctuate like this, and this article to punctuate like this, buy the Chicago Style Manual. You can get an outdated version for like $4. It won't cost you any money. Anyway, so my process with writing when I got back here, when I went to Colorado first, was I would sit down and I'd commit to writing 2,000 words a day, no matter what.
Wow.
And so at first it took me a very long time. I had it in my head, so I would go, but it was like my physical skill wasn't able to keep up with my mind. Mm-hmm. Gradually I got quicker, and I could write maybe 2,000 words in about an hour and a half, something like that. And so I ended up writing a 100,000 word book in about 45 days, essentially, or a little more than that, maybe 45, 50 days, because some days I would have more. And so I wrote the whole book then, and I thought it was perfect and it was amazing and it was the best thing ever. And then I showed it to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, which I love her. She's wonderful. And she's like, this might need some work. And I was like, no, it's perfect. But there's a saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't know what I didn't know. So I went on this vast journey to learn how to become an author, studied I became voracious and learned everything I could to make it better. And then coming into limitations, I got to the end of my limitation. I need professional help. Well, nobody ever tells you that publishing a book is going to be super expensive in some ways. Now you can do it for free, but it's not going there's things you need to do to have a really, really awesome book that people are actually going to read, like the packaging, the cover, the everything else. Right. And so to do this, we ran a Kickstarter and we raised $10,000 to pay for all of the editing, because it's like $2,500 to get a professional editor. It's a quality editor, she has award, New York Times bestsellers in her list. Okay. And things like that. She's a friend. I'm sure she probably charges more for other people. Then you have your formatter, you have your proofreader after that, then you have to do your I don't know. There's a lot of expenses that come into not even touching on marketing, which comes later. And so to do this, I turned to Kickstarter, which I've used before to film movies in the past. I'm also a filmmaker too. I didn't tell you that. Yes. But I made a documentary called Where We Dance, screened at Lincoln Center, did a lot of other things, but that's another chapter that we won't really talk about today. Okay. But anyways, so I got to that point where I had this manuscript and it was as far as I could take. And I thought, okay, now what? We ran a Kickstarter, our goal was 8,000, raised 10,000. So we could even do an audiobook along with it. And the process began. And then from the editor, I learned a lot about, I learned so much about GMCs. And actually, I'm starting a course now called From Kickstarter to Amazon Bestseller, because we did become bestseller. So it's to help authors who are in that situation. Like I said, it's about contribution. I want to help people that were in the same situation with me, where you're like, I don't have $10,000 to publish this book at this moment. I have this amazing thing that's my baby and I love it and I care for it, but I don't have the money to make it what I know it can be. And so I'm going to be launching a course for that later too. I'll give you information on that. Cool. Anyways, so all that came in here and we have this beautiful, I just want to share because I want to geek out. So even here, I don't know if you can see, underneath there, do you see that? Yes. So that's the secret code in there. Okay. And once you read the book, you can actually decode what the cover says. So I have secret codes hidden in the cover here that you can only decode after you read the book. And a lot of these markings come from inside the Cathedral of Santiago, right? On the pillars, they have the mason's marks. So these symbols are chiseled in there, and the mason marks were to know which quarry to pay or which artist did what. But in my book, there's a secret code of the Knights Templar hidden within those quarry marks, amongst other things on the Camino. And so I took something that's actually there and I looked up old coding systems that would have been relevant at that time. And I kind of put that together, which is kind of fun.
Wow. Okay. How did you learn about all this stuff? I mean, were you already familiar with the Templars before your walk? Because
I knew about them. I didn't really, I knew a little bit. I've been familiar with the Freemasons and other things, but I never really dove into Templar history. And everything just, like I said, on the Camino when things just happen, that's what this book has been. It's been one thing after the next that just happens. And I don't know. It's so weird to explain. I want to geek out about one other thing if I can. I'm sorry, but this is one of my favorite parts. It's the map in the beginning.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Right. So we have the Camino map, and then we have each of our chapter headings.
Yeah.
I'm such a book nerd now. I love books. Each of our chapter headings has the little shell on it.
Lovely.
Everybody can follow their own Camino when they follow the book, so they're following the shells to the next chapter. And then we got like the little Templar coat on the back. And so,
oh my goodness, I just like the amount of detail that you've gone to is wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know, it just sort of happened like that. It's crazy. I like this book for me. Like I feel like it's like the Da Vinci Code meets the Alchemist meets what's the third one? Yeah, we can just say Da Vinci Code meets the Alchemist essentially, because there's like the secret code that you're following, and at the same time there's these spiritual lessons that are going on. So the award we won was actually in the spiritual fiction category, and I feel absolutely honored to be one of the winners in that category, because like some of the favorite books, like The Alchemist is a spiritual fiction book. Siddhartha, Celestine Prophecy, like all these other books are spiritual fiction books, and now my book is ranked among, it won an award in that category. And so I was like,
oh my gosh.
whoa.
So tell everyone, so what's the name of this award?
It's called the Eric Hoffer Award, and it's one of the most prestigious awards in self-publishing. So on the thing it says for excellence in independent publishing, and it's an international award, and it's one of the biggest ones there is. I can't give you an exact figure of how many people go through, but that's what the award is.
So what did it feel like when you found out you won this award?
Oh man, it was just like 2 days ago. Well, I thought I hadn't won. And so, because I thought I missed the deadline, and there were some winners in other categories that were coming up, and I was like, oh man, because I like to visualize things. Mm-hmm. Like I visualized myself winning, this award. It like, and I thought I missed it, and I was like, oh man, really? And then what I did? I sat in meditation. Mm-hmm. And the next day, or like that day, like I can't remember, it was that day and the next day, like I just opened the box and they're like, you won. And I was like, great, that just happened. Whoa.
Oh wow. So I gotta ask, Brian, were you like this before you walked the Camino, where you were visualizing and you just seem to have a really special spirit about things. Were you like this before, or has this developed on a deeper level since walking?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So the first time I kind of realized this, I was, I think I was 15 or 16. I just started dancing, I was like the 220-pound kid. It's also a bully going down a bad path. Like I shudder to think about where I would have been had I kept going down there. But, I had one day after I'd been dancing for a while, I came downstairs. I was like, I want to be thin. Remember, I'm 15, right? I want to be thin. I want women to want me, and I want guys to want to be like me. Every 50-year-old's dream, right? And within a matter of like 6 months to a year, I had all that. Like I'd lost 60 pounds dancing, and I became kind of like the it man within the scene. And people were emulating it. Like it was that thing, and then I became a teacher and blah 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 blah. But at that moment, it was like I realized reality is what you make it. Everything's negotiable. And so I've always tried to live my life on purpose. I think I have a lot of things to say about purpose, but I've always lived my life on purpose. Like I have lived my purpose since I was 18 years old, 15 years old, all the way till now, and I think when you're living a life on purpose, the doors open up for you and you just have to walk through them. And then there's listening empathically to yourself and to the universe, right? Or God. For me, it's God. Other people may be the universe. Right. And so like listening empathically to yourself is that little voice inside you, the one that you don't always listen to, but you should to, right? And so you have to get quiet and listen to that. And then empathically to the universe is like, when you start you want a yellow car, and then you start seeing yellow cars everywhere. It's like one of those things, the universe will give you signs. And I know anybody who's all walked on the Camino, that happens. And I think the Camino de Santiago is an amplifier for that. I think there's holy places in the world that amplify that. And I mean, so much to the point where I have to be careful about what I speak there, because it manifests right away. And actually, I have a part in the book about that. I don't know if you want to. It's kind of been interesting about like the prayers of the pilgrims going out.
Let's hear it.
I don't have it marked actually. I wasn't expecting this, but anyway. So I think it's really an amplifier for how that. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Can I read you a little bit?
Yes, please.
I don't know how long it will take. Okay. So this is kind of one of the little spiritual parts in the book. And this is actually based off a photograph I took on the Camino. I saw this little thing going zzz across the screen because it was a live photo. I was like, what the heck was that? And so this is kind of what came out of that. The caravan had stopped for the midday meal when the sun was at its zenith. On either side of the Camino, barren fields stretched for miles. Someone found it desolate, but Etienne found it beautiful. Something about its emptiness made him feel whole. Perhaps it wasn't the scenery, but that for the first time in his life, he was surrounded by others who looked like him. There were several people in the caravan who had dark skin, just like his. He had been the only person of color in the palace in France, and at the Ark, there were Spaniards, but he was still different. The Templars treated him as a brother and equal, yet even there, he once heard an old Templar say that Etienne reminded him of the enemy. Etienne moved away from the caravan for his noontime prayer. It was his daily ritual and constant companion on all of his miles he had traveled. For him, the journey inside was much more important than the journey outside. The other travelers sat in the shade of the coaches with their shoes off, all trying to prevent blisters. Pilgrims dined and laughed in little groups of 3 or 4. Some slept, others drank. The storks in the field, always just out of reach, their long, slender bodies and expansive wingspans added a certain sort of mystique to the land. Etienne bowed his head. My lord, I pray you'll forgive me for the lies I've taken in defense of your pilgrims. The scarred face of the Moor Etienne had killed in Castellerez flashed into his thoughts. Etienne shook his head. It couldn't have been him. Etienne hadn't told the others why he froze at the boathouse when he'd seen the shadow's face. It was the face of this dead Moor staring back at him. It couldn't have been him. Are these shadows the souls of the people I've killed? Did they come back to destroy me and those I care for? Etienne grabbed the crucifix that hung around his neck tightly, and blood ran down his hand. He ignored the pain. He had taught himself how to numb his senses long ago. A lifetime of violence had caused him to adapt. He focused on his breath. Forgive me for the lies I've taken. His meditation was broken by the sound of running water. He opened his eyes to see an old pilgrim close by, relieving himself. Etienne loosened his grip on the crucifix and wiped the blood on his garments. When the pilgrim finished, he turned and laughed. Oh, I didn't see you sitting there, he said, laughing once again. His long gray beard and wrinkles accentuated his laughter. It seemed that each line etched into his skin held all the smiles the pilgrim had ever smiled. He was tall and slender with powerful muscles that supported his wiry frame. Etienne had never seen eyes like his before. They had a certain brightness and almost seemed to glow. Do you mind if I join you? The old pilgrim asked, reaching for his staff. As you wish, Etienne said. Why are you on the Camino? The old man's question reverberated through Etienne. It felt like the question was posed directly to his soul. I was ordered here, Etienne said, trying to make his voice sound confident. However, to him it sounded hollow. Ha, I see, the old man stroked his beard. Some choose this path and others are called. You have been called. What does that mean? He tried to maintain eye contact, but the weight of the stranger's gaze made it seem impossible. There is a saying on the Camino that the Camino will provide whatever you need. You are needed here. If you don't choose of your own free will to be here, it means that there is great need for you on the road. Gathering his composure, Etienne looked at Isabella and the other pilgrims. It was as if this man could see past his answer to the truth, a truth he was just realizing for the first time. He was here for Isabella. Why are you here, old man? I have always been here. The stranger extended his arm. Give me your hand. Etienne tried to resist the order, but the pull was too strong. A wound, just like my lord's, said the old man. You carry the burden of suffering like him. You have taken on a heavy task. The pilgrim clasped Etienne's hand between his and held it. When he released his grip, Etienne's wound was healed. Etienne dropped to his knees and bowed his head. He couldn't believe his senses. He had just witnessed a miracle. My lord, he whispered, a mixture of gratitude and joy found inside him. For the first time in his life, he was feeling jubilation. Rise, I'm not my lord. I'm not your lord. I'm a servant just like you. I cannot, Etienne said without rising. I am not worthy. Rise, commanded the old pilgrim. Etienne's followed orders without his consent once more. The old pilgrim's eyes burned brightly. I have been ordered to show you something. The Camino always provides. The pilgrim slammed his large staff on the ground. On impact, a ring of fire burst forth and rippled off to the horizon. As it stretched out, everything slowed in its wake until it came to a standstill. The pilgrim stood motionless. When time had almost stopped, something strange happened. Miniature comets appeared streaking above the ground. The slower time went, the more comets appeared. When time had completely stopped, Etienne looked around and saw thousands of these comets surrounding them. They stretched the horizon, shooting through anything that stood in their way. Some were gold, others green, and some were brilliantly white or silver. Each was a glowing ball with a tail of light tracing after it. The ones that were the last to appear had the longest trails stretching for hundreds of yards. What is this? Etienne managed. He was in awe of this second miracle he was witnessing. The old pilgrim let out a laugh that echoed and shook the small comets. Each comet struggled to push forward, past the invisible force holding them fast. These are the prayers of the pilgrims. He reached down and picked up the closest one. It was only a few inches in length. His long, slender fingers pinched the trembling prayer and brought it to Etienne's eye level. He stretched the blazing green prayer apart with both hands. It expanded, making a fiery frame, opening a window into a room with a young man ill in bed. This pilgrim lies sick in Lyon. He is praying for God to heal him, and that this sickness will go away as soon as possible. Will God heal him? Etienne asked in wonder. Yes and no. Not quickly. His belief isn't that strong. Prayers travel at different speeds. The more someone believes, the quicker and stronger the prayer moves. There is also a more profound aspect to this man's sickness. It is actually a blessing in disguise. The pilgrim reached down and plucked up a silver prayer from the air that was 1.5 yards in length. He extended it, and Etienne saw a young woman with blonde hair kneeling in prayer through the silvery frame. God has called this woman to the Camino. She is the woman of strong belief and has been praying that she will meet her future husband. The man who lies sick is the one God has set aside for her. Had he not been taken by illness, their paths would have never crossed. For she now travels with this party and is only 2 days away from Lyon. The old pilgrim motioned to the caravan, and there stood the woman who is in the silver prayer. Sometimes the things that seem to be our greatest challenges turn into our greatest rewards. Etienne looked around him in wonder. Not knowing what else to say, he asked, "Are these around us on the Camino at all times?" Yes. However, prayers move faster than sight, so they are imperceptible. Remember, there is power in prayer, and the Camino provides not always what you want, but exactly what you need to fulfill your life's purpose. With this, the old pilgrim hit his staff on the ground once more, and the prayers were released. They moved at incredible speeds until they disappeared along with the old man. Once they vanished, the members of the caravan began to move again, and Etienne was knocked to the ground. He looked up at the sky above him and laughed ecstatically.
Wow. I think you just very poetically said so many beautiful things about the power of the Camino. You know, I think the prayers of all the pilgrims that have walked before us just enlivens that path. And the way that you illustrated how these miracles are happening. And when we slow down at that Camino pace, we start seeing these miracles right before our eyes, right? Mm-hmm. All the clutter's gone, mm-hmm. and there they are. So I love, oh my goodness, I think that passage you just shared will make everybody go and order your book.
I hope so. I would just want to inspire so many people with this and help people. Like, that's it. Yeah. That's my simple prayer, you know.
Oh, it's so beautifully written. I cannot wait to read it. I noticed that actually in some of the reviews that there were some people that were just saying how beautifully written. I mean, you have a real gift of putting this into writing. And I love how you've connected with the very ancient story and how you're bringing to life.
Thank you.
The history and combining that with what we even feel, what we feel as modern day pilgrims as we're walking.
Well, it's kind of interesting, like one of the main facets of the Knights Templar was to protect pilgrims.
Yes.
So they have been on the Camino de Santiago for a very long time. And that's something that people don't realize. And also the guy who told me about the Templars also told me about the credentials, right? So, your credentials that you take with you. So that actually goes back to Templar time. They were essentially the first international banking system. So if you want to go on a pilgrimage, you go to your local Templar commandery, you give them your gold, and they'll give you a credential that you would then take with you on your pilgrimage. and any place you wanted to like it had your coded piece of paper, and then you go stop at another commandery and you take out gold. You go to the next one and take out gold, and each time they go. So that's where the tradition of the credential comes from. And so like it's deep, it's in there. And a lot of this too, I know a lot of people aren't history buffs, like my wife. She's like, it's getting boring, less history. So what we did was we made an appendix in the back. So everything in there, like the Battle of Montesquieu, which was one from the Crusades, everything in here is researched and pegged. It's in the back of the book, so you can learn the history as well as you're reading this.
Oh my goodness. Well, I really encourage everyone to get this book, because I think that will just make, if they haven't walked the Camino yet, or if they're going to walk it again, what a great book to have read, because then as you walk through this, you're going to know the history, and you're going to have a whole different perception of that whole area. Well, the whole walk. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
It also turns into a scavenger hunt, because the thing about it is, like, I talk about things that you can actually see on the Camino today, like as part of the code. So you can go into the Cathedral of Leon and you can see the green men that I'm talking about, or you can go into the Cathedral in Santiago and see the Mason's marks that I'm talking about. So you can see everything, you can find them. And I had a really cool experience. So I'm currently working on the second book. We just
going to ask that.
Yeah, so we just went through our beta reads. It's back to us, and we're actually launching a Kickstarter now within the next two weeks. Okay. 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to be launching it. So I'll keep you informed when that happens. I had such a cool experience. So this was my pilgrims in 2017, right? So I went back in 2018 and walked from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Burgos, and I got the second book.
Oh, okay. So what's the name of the second one?
It's called Back Through a Field of Stars. And there's so many cool stories. I'll show you the cover really quickly, but I'll just share my screen because I'm super stoked about it.
And we get the Kickstarter links and whatnot. We'll put that in the show notes.
Oh, that would be great. So here's our cover for Back Through a Field of Stars.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of cool because, we still have the same secret code. So there'll be a completely different code to figure out with the new coding system back here. And we have the Cross of St. John, Cross of St. James in the middle. We have a pyramid up top because we talk about the Tetragrammaton, which is interesting. And then we have the Templar cross, the Hospitaller cross. So the Hospitallers are kind of the bad guys in my book because I needed bad guys. But and they also inherited all the Templar property after they were, disappeared. And then here I have the Cross of Jerusalem, which you can't see really. This is just a mock-up because we'll pay for a professional to do it. I just made this up.
You designed this?
What's that? You
designed this as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, is there anything you don't do? I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You're blowing me away today. Like, you are so talented at so many different things.
I'm an autodidact. So like now in history, like is a great time for me because I can teach myself. The greatest thing I ever learned was how I learn. And so I can teach myself stuff very quickly because I know the process that I learned by. But anyways, so fast forward. So I got that book there. Then on my third Camino, my wife and I did it for our honeymoon. We did the whole thing straight through. And I got to a point there right outside. So I'm working on the second book there. And I got to a point, I'm still working on the first book, like some edits of the first book, right there. And I got to the point right outside of Pamplona. There's an old Hospitaller commandery there. It's super cool. And they have a chapel there and whatnot. I'm staying the night there. And I run into a guy that I'd briefly met on my Camino in 2017. Randomly, out of all the things in the world, he was there on that day in that place. His name is Alan. He's wonderful. I'm sure some of your listeners might know him. But anyways, I sat outside with him and two sisters. My wife went to bed and they asked me about that book. So I read them the beginning of my book. And here it is. It was Friday the 13th. And I'll tell you why that's poignant is the Knights Templar were rounded up on Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th, 1307. Okay. And so that was one of the reasons why Friday the 13th was unlucky. So here we are, Friday the 13th, full moon. I'm reading them, my thing. And right as I finish the prologue, fireworks start going off. in the background over Pamplona. I was like, what is going on? Anyway, fast forward 2 days, I don't see those sisters, and they come up to me and they said, oh my God, we've been talking about your book. We've been seeing things. We keep, like, there's one part, I can't remember the town, but there's handprints in the ground. They pretended like the handprints belonged to one of my characters, Gerhard Mariano, the giant guy and little one. And so they were actually like my first, like, LARPing people. I guess they were live action role playing or something, like going through, like they were having the experience of reading this and then going through and seeing everything and living in that fictional world that you can still live in today. So I created a fictional world, but you can still live in it today on the Camino if you go walk it. I think that's one of the coolest things. For me, that's one of the coolest things about this, is you can read a lot of books that are fictional worlds, but you can't just go step into that world. With this book, people can just go step into the Camino. They can go into the cathedrals. They can see this code. They can try to crack it, Like,
love it.
That's what it comes to.
I want to circle to something else because you mentioned earlier that you walked really kind of one of the first times or the second time after a breakup. I guess it was your second time.
Yeah.
So you go and you walk the second time after a heartbreak, and then you eventually go on to meet the girl that becomes your wife. And absolutely. I wanted to say how brave of her to give you criticism of the book before you're married, right? And then you guys must belong together because you survived the criticism and actually made improvements to the book based on her feedback. And so one of the things I was going to ask you earlier, but you just said that she's also a pilgrim now. So had she walked before she met you, or how did it come about that, I mean, a lot of people go to beach resorts for their honeymoon, and you convinced her, or it was
okay, yeah, I can
go on the Camino for your honeymoon. So tell us about that.
So with dancing, I usually travel for about 6 to 9 months out of the year. Every week is a different country or different city. Okay. So what we did is we, after we got married, we had a beautiful wedding at a camp. We had like 200 people for 3 days. It was epic. And then we went to Prague for the first part of our honeymoon. And then we went back, I did a gig in London, and then we went and walked the Camino. We spent 33 days, did the whole thing. And it was half honeymoon, like Prague was kind of the honeymoon, but this was honeymoon too. And but it was also research for the book. So I could go back and double check everything and see things and get photos and other things. So, and God bless her, I'm telling you, my advice for people out there, marry somebody who's kind and supportive. Like, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be with somebody who's kind. Like, if you're looking for somebody, look for somebody who's kind. Like, hands down, I realized how important that is. And one of the ways they came into when I was debating if we were going to get married and move forward was, that there's that passage, love is patient, love is kind, love is not brag or boast, bears all things, believes all things, endures. I read something that said, put your partner's name in there. So Chelsea's kind. Chelsea does not brag or boast, like it's etc. And so the moment like that really conceptualized them, I think they're talking about what love is there. And when I put her name into there and I saw that she fit all those categories, I was like, wow, I need, like, this woman's mine. Like, she's my person, and so it came through with that. And another funny story too was, I met her off the Camino, but after that breakup, I decided to take a year off women.
Okay.
Like, that was part of it. I'm writing another book called The Breakup Beard. It'll be like the Eat, Pray, Love book for men. So, but we'll get there later. That's after I finish this trilogy. Okay. But so I gave up women for a year, and then I met her at the very end of that year. So I had to work on myself to become. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is she also a dancer?
She is a dancer. We met out dancing, and so we met out dancing, and we didn't like each other at first. We're like, whatever. And she was new to Colorado, and I was back visiting my family. And I asked her if she was going anywhere for Christmas. And she's like, no, I'm going to be here in town. I was like, well, have you made any friends? And she's like, no, not many yet. So I made a mental note. And I went off to Hawaii to do a workshop, and I came back and I saw her again. And I asked her, I was like, hey, you want to come to Christmas? And she's like, yeah, sure. And it's just as friends. She's a traveler. I'm a traveler. It's one of those things. Yeah. And then a few days later, I invited her to like a 1920s Burning Man party of all things. Like, I thought she was going to be a burner because she had like dreadlocks, but that's not her personality at all. So anyway, so I invited her to this party, and this other guy was interested in her. And I was like, wait a second, maybe I'm interested in her. So it's one of those things that you don't really realize what you have right away. And then when you do, you're like, wow, this person's amazing. And she continues to be, I mean, she's my partner and everything. She helps me with the Kickstarters. Like she's my first editor on all the books. Like we go through and we work as a team. We're going to be working on one of her books later. And one other advice for writers out there, criticism is great. Constructive criticism is great. Like at first I got so defensive about it, but it's people trying to help you. And the more you go through it, the more you realize that. But also pay attention to who you listen to. That's the other thing, because everybody's going to have opinions, and really pay attention. We have a whole like beta reader program that we adopted from one of our mentors, which is phenomenal. That takes you through. But anyway, that's just some other stuff.
Wow, I think I could talk to you all day. Brian, this has been so interesting. It's really very interesting to speak with, and I can't wait to read your book. When we first set up the interview, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get to it before the date that we've set to talk. And I wish that I would have, but I know for sure I'm going to read it. And I'm actually going to buy a second copy for one of my friends who's really, really interested in the Templar. So I think she's really going to love it. And I'm going to have all the links so that people will be able to find your book a little more easily. And I just so appreciate you coming and talking to us at the Camino Cafe today. And also just want to thank you on behalf of all the pilgrims of how you're paying it forward and all the cool things you're doing and how you're listening to your purpose. I love your story in the beginning that God, has a sense of humor and look at the things that have happened for you. And it's pretty amazing. You've got an amazing story. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Of course. And thank you for doing this and getting the word out there. And it's just about living a life of contribution, and you're contributing back to a community that needs this right now and will continue to need it. Connection's amazing. It's important for pilgrims to stay connected. That's it. Friend me on Facebook.
Yes.
I would love it. Be friends. I love pilgrims. I love having conversations with pilgrims, like Camino families. We're family. We've all had this experience. We are family. And that's what it comes down to. And, it's a unique experience that you will only fully understand if you do it.
Exactly. And I feel like as an adult, it's kind of hard to find these kind of communities and connections. And I feel like the Camino really gives you an opportunity to be a part of something bigger.
Absolutely.
And I think both of us really have examples of how, our lives have expanded since going on the Camino.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of things you can say that you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely life-changing. Absolutely life-changing.
Well, you are a beautiful example of the power of the Camino. So thank you for sharing all your stories. From the first story, you had me hooked of that first time going into Santiago and how you were with that woman. That was amazing. So thank you so very much. You're welcome back anytime. And let's make sure we get your links to the new Kickstarter. Best of luck on the second book and your third book. And what's that a future book going to be called? The Year You Gave Up Women? What was that?
The Breakup Beard. I want a green book. I want a book with like a felt beard on it. I don't know if that's possible, but how hilarious would that be to have like a fuzzy book, like just with the beard?
I love it. Well, I'm just going to say to everyone, if you've listened to this on our podcast, make sure you check out the video too, so you can see Brian's amazing energy in person. And I know you're going to hear it, but I think you'll want to see him as well. So I'm going to close out the interview. Thank you everyone for listening. And I know that you're going to be inspired to read his book and hopefully walk the Camino or take a second pilgrimage or maybe a third or fourth. So thank you everyone for being here today.
Buen Camino, everybody. Take care.
Buen Camino.